Mic check, test 1, 2. Mic check, test, check, check.
No, I'm gonna turn it off. Just let me make sure.
It will, because that front light that's by that board, it's going to be there. There's no way to shut it off. Well, no, because we've never had the lights on. We were testing the first time we tested. We had the front portion of the lights off so that the board would be visible with the presentations.
Buenos días, everyone.
Good morning.
Buenos días. My name is Malika Niconejo. I am a third-year doctoral student in the Department of Teaching and Learning. We'll do some formal introductions in a second, but this is an opportunity for us to get to know all of you all. Kind of celebrating this moment.
Who's ready to start? Who's eager to introduce? Yes.
My name is Julia. I'm an international graduate student. I'm doing a master's in Untitled Chapter. I am graduate assistant at the academic center. I'm doing mentorship certification for that purpose. Something unique. I find myself very resilient.
Excellent. Love it. Let's give some snaps up for that introduction. That's exciting. We're going to encourage and celebrate. All right, who's next? You're gonna? That is interesting. Favorite composer? Very nice. Very cool. All right, next. Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Jamie. I'm also an international student.
Mhm.
I'm doing my MBA in hospitality program here. I'm also a junior at the Academic Success Center. This is my first program. Something unique about me. I like travel
Mhm.
a lot and different culture and food.
There you go. Thank you, Amy. Do you want to go next? Thank you. Yeah.
Sure.
Mhm.
My name is Frank Dennis.
Just something unique about you.
Something unique.
Very cool.
My name is Yesenia Moya and I'm a community organizer active in grassroots.
Very cool. I already shared my name, but I'll share it again because we have some new friends in the room. My name is Malika, and I was born on a full moon.
Hi, everybody. We're multitasking. My name is Christine Clark. I'm faculty in the Department of Teaching and Learning. I coordinate a program in the master's and doctoral level in cultural studies, international ed, and multicultural education. And something unique about me, not that unique to Malika, but something unique about me to others is that I have two Dobermans named Brooklyn and Diego, and I like to take late night walks with them under the moon.
Hi, I'm Celine. I'm a PhD student in sociology. I'm not very unique, so I'm a little off bar. I've been to 6 other countries.
That's very unique, Celine. Awesome. Yes.
I'm Amy Pace. I am also a PhD student in sociology. Unique thing about me, I like to run. Like I enjoy it, which most people.
What's your furthest distance?
I am right at a half K right now. I'm planning to run the Vegas half marathon.
I could sense it. Yes, that determined result. Yes, right there. Great. Thank you. Oh, hey, good exercise.
I'm a coder. I'm a PhD student
degree, recently defended, so I'm on my way out.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And as far as unique, well, being a grad student, I started my grad program over the age of 35. I won't get any more details than that.
Amazing journey. Beautiful story. Thank you.
My name is Jessica. I'm a PhD student in experimental psychology. I research music cognition, and not terribly unique, but I'm an avid hiker and photographer. I recently did Grand Canyon Rim. I've done I do like big 23, 24-mile hikes in one day.
Mhm. That's amazing. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. We have one more friend. Did you get a chance to introduce yourself?
My name is Nagasi Gawamaiker. I am TGA. Distinctive or new about me. Every course I encounter taught me compassion.
That's a wonderful way to be described. Yeah. And our friend, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, my name is Bree Beaufrey. I'm a doctoral candidate in criminology and criminal justice. Something unique is I do yoga every day, and I like to do headstands and handstands. It's fun. It's how I de-stress.
Very cool. Love to see that. Maybe you can give us pointers, Bree, when the world's upside down and we can. Yes. Welcome. Would you share your name and maybe something, a fun fact about yourself?
Sure. I've been praised on this preface.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. My name's Dale Harris, was major. What else?
Something interesting, unique, a fact about you.
I can dodge traffic like crazy.
So we will talk to you when we need to get somewhere on time. All right, everyone.
Okay, we're just making a microphone shift since we're being recorded. So that was just a handoff. Okay, so again, my name is Christine Clark, and what we would like is to start with an introductory exercise. And so we put some Post-it notes around the room. There may be a few that don't have any. Add some more over here, just so that you can write down responses to the 6 questions that we have up here. And whenever you can write down as many responses to each question, you can answer some questions, but not others if you don't want to, or you don't feel like you have something to add or to say. What we'd like you to do is just look at the questions. I'll read them each in case people can't see them. And then think about how you want to respond to them from your own experiences, your own ideas, your own background knowledge, your prior cultural wealth, funds of knowledge from the sum total of the experiences that you've had in your life. So we're not asking you to Google answers on your phone. We're asking you to draw from within, to rely on your own prior knowledge related to the topic that we're starting out with today, which is mentorship. Okay, and so then when you're ready, you can just come up and post your responses near as close to the web for each of the questions. Okay, so the questions are, what have been your experiences with or of mentorship, your personal experiences? What does mentorship mean to you? How would you describe it? What does it look like to you? Someone you want to honor as a mentor, just put their name, if that's important, just to call out and honor who they are. Anything about mentorship you'd like to challenge, trouble, or critique. Questions that you have about mentorship, maybe things that you thought about on your way here, or things that came to mind as a reason for you being here. And then finally, where do you think the idea for and or the practice of mentorship comes from? You're graduate students, right? So theorize its origins. And Yesenia and Frankie are almost graduate students. So I have no doubt that they can out-theorize all of us, okay? So on your mark, get set, go. We'll give you a few minutes. Like those. Get out of the way so people can see the questions. Here, take this one. Don't want to be in people's way. I know you could write 7 pages. This is a good activity for you to learn to summarize. I had a great professor in college that used to yell at us all the time and say, you people need to learn how to summarize. It was a
actually good though, because he used to give us like 1-page assignments, and he'd say, you have to accomplish all this in 1 page. Thank you. I still have a picture. Did you print it? Feminism and womenism as part of the transition from this to that. That's you. So we have how much time? An hour? Not bad. Just a little bit, right? So after we do this, I'll erase what's on the board and we can put your stuff up on the board. Does that make sense? I'll take a picture before we do it though. You want all the purple together? Yes, no? You need more post-it notes? Of course she does. She needs more post-it notes. Of course she does. Oh, we're happy to have you. We're troubling the binary of undergrad grad. Especially since it bears very little reflection to where people are developmentally, you know. So often it has nothing to do with that, at least in my experience. And less than 7 pages. So if you have posted, or once you do post, what we'd like you to do then is to do what we call a gallery walk, and just to go and just reflect on the sum total of everybody's responses to each question. It's okay. Close quarter.
Oh.
Not my kind of workshop.
Oh, everything. So impressed always when we do these activities. Huh? You're so sweet. I don't know that I deserve that, but I appreciate it. It's mutual. You make me better. I love it. You and me both. That's not my thing. Hot, hot, hot with lots of half and half. I'm on mic. It's okay. It's okay for them to hear how I like my coffee. They can edit. Mhm. points to the gallery walk, and then we'll transition. Okay, so I'm going to take pictures while people are finishing up so we can share it with the videographers because we're going to erase probably, right? You can. You want to ask them?
Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in the gallery walk, for sharing your valuable funds of knowledge and your community cultural wealth. So we want to just kind of get your initial responses to this exercise and what this experience was like for you all and how, let's start with there, and then I'll ask my follow-up question. So anyone at any point, yeah. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I like that it was, since everybody got to contribute, we got to see not just the similarities and things we're thinking about mentorship, but also different experiences and different approaches or concerns you have.
Absolutely.
I think we'll all participate in all these workshops and kind of hear some of the same ideas and think, oh, it's all one and the same. But that's what illustrates a lot of diversity in terms of opinions and thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm a visual person, and so we could have done this in a focus group and said, oh, this is what this person thinks, but to have it laid out and be able to go through it your own time, see the different colors, I mean, there's different feeling to it. It does feel more communal.
Yeah.
Everyone is able to have a voice. Not everyone is comfortable speaking publicly. I will dominate the conversation. I'm very comfortable with the sound of my own voice, but there are always, often people choose not to speak up and their voice is lost. So by doing this in a written form, everyone is able to contribute.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
I had a question. So how did you think of the questions?
She's so conscientious about the mic. It's amazing. I'm over here talking about how I like my coffee. She keeps saying, you're on mic. And I said, that's okay. That's a part of mentorship as well. Yes, exactly. So what we're trying to do is also walk the talk of mentorship as we have this conversation about it. And so one of the things that I think we share a connection with as colleagues is this idea that we can't really learn anything unless we start with what we already know in teaching. And because we come out of teaching and learning, we think of prior knowledge as super important, right? We know, and the educational literature tells us, and our experiences of teaching reinforce what the literature tells us, which is that we have to activate students' prior knowledge in order to understand from the perspective of a formative assessment where to go. And we forget that. And mentorship, however we consider it and how we're going to talk about it today, really is a form of teaching. And for us, teaching is a reciprocal act. It's a conversation. It's a reciprocal relationship between students and teachers, where knowledge flows in both directions. And so it's important for us to develop questions that will help you to access and activate your prior knowledge so that we can then understand the knowledge that's in the room. And one of the things I love about this activity is just how much it always blows up, right? What I'm thinking coming in the room, because we have been trained really, unfortunately, as teachers to assume that as teachers we know and that our students do not. And so doing this always reminds me that I don't know, right? And that my students often, know so much more, and especially more than even in having this sort of orientation to teaching, I still constantly revert to my socialization, which is to assume I know and they don't. And so I always start with this to challenge that training, to challenge that conditioning, especially in higher education. Does that help?
Oh, yes.
And for our viewers at home, we will be sure to type up this information, and we've captured some images and pictures that we will also share with you all as well, so you can further reflect on it. So my follow-up question, and love to hear from some folks we have yet to hear from as well. How can this exercise be modeled in relating to a new possible mentee, right? When you begin a relationship in your role as mentor?
I think that it would be important to talk to your mentor or to your mentee and see what it is that they need from you, and see what they already know and what they need help with, because you can assume that you know how to, or your mentorship style already is going to work with that person.
Yeah.
Communication is important.
Absolutely. It's very insightful, right? asking as a starting point, what do you need and how can I support? Amazing. Yeah. Other thoughts?
Get to know their background and what experiences they have had, because they may have had some sort of experience and some sort of knowledge or skill that they already have and they can already apply, that they don't need to hear you like lecture them or direct them to repeat that you can better see where the gaps are, what they need from you in learning their experience, and asking what they need, but also trying to anticipate, like, okay, they've already had this experience, I don't need to go so much there, but then explore those areas where it's more of a blank slate still.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Once you do find out a little bit more of who they are, what their individual needs are, I think it's also important as a mentor to understand that yes, if they came to you, that's great. Just know sometimes that it is okay to refer them to someone else. Not say refer them, but to say, hey, you mentioned this. I know a person who specializes in this, so talk to them about it. Not to say I can't be your mentor, but let's always remember your resources and your contacts and stuff like that
Absolutely.
to make sure that they get their best experience and knowledge that they can.
Yeah, expanding networks and making connections, building a village, really, right, of support. Any other thoughts? All right. So, we're going to talk a little bit, very briefly, about a feminist perspective on mentoring, and that's because that's my positionality. And so what I do is engage in what we call femtorship. And so femtorship seeks to be a transformative experience where we really kind of analyze and evaluate how some traditional forms of mentoring tend to replicate dominant cultural ideas. And that can also mean power dynamics, right? Where it feels like, and I think I saw posted on here that it was like my way only, right? That sometimes that can be problematic, misunderstanding about the mentorship role. And so femtorship seeks to unpack that, and how do we shift and create a transformative journey that can also help to support the dismantling or give the person tools to navigate not just the systems as they are, but to seek to change them as well, and to be an active participant and believe that they can, right? Reminding them through our relating that they have power and positionality, just as we've said today, with their voice, their presence, the space that they take up. And so we have in front of you all a little continuum of femtorship to mentorship. And we know that this is a new term for you all, but we want you to just explore what this could potentially look like. We're also not trying to suggest that femtorship is because it's a woman mentor. It has really nothing to do with the etymology of the word mentorship either. It's really about problem posing traditional mentorship as it has happened up to this point. So in an envelope, you're going to be working with pairs or trios. So we might have to cuddle up and get nice and friendly. So these are my makeshift envelopes. This is what teachers do when we improvise and we need envelopes, right? We just take recycled paper. But in them, you'll find some kind of ideas about this idea of femtorship or mentorship. And it might be somewhere that it falls right in the middle. So with your partner, with your small group, organize them on this kind of continuum spectrum. And then we're going to give you these bigger ones. They're slightly bigger, ideally, that we can actually come and stick up how you all worked on it and visualize this experience. So it's color coded so we can see our different groups, and then we'll be able to also visually kind of explore what we've done together. Any questions on what I'm asking you all to do? In 2 minutes? That's okay. We'll walk around. So again, just kind of explore the idea, think about where you would position them on the continuum. And when we're ready, we will then begin to transition and post them up in bigger up here at the board. Okay.
Knowledge transfer, share of information. Those are the big ones. Share feels mandatory, but at the same time, there's knowledge shared in mentorship and directional knowledge. So, yeah. Share.
Yeah.
You're actually at the bottom of your okay, so this is probably different. I think so. Let's do very limited. Personal and professional relationship. Probably and culturally reproduce and disseminate dominant ideology. Relationship based on mutual trust and respect. Maybe the middle. I think it can be like that, but still, yeah. Our middle study. Relationship in which a more serious person ought to guide a listener. Our continuing. Thank you. Together.
Right.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Reciprocal learning. A relationship in which implies this one. I think you're oh no, traditional, more transformative for individuals seeking different. Different is the key. Yeah, that's around what works for
We're gonna redefine the plane here a little bit more.
So,
I was just thinking.
Oh, yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, we don't need to building skills. Oh, yeah. Traditional skills.
Then I would have to like go into the education.
What are you doing right now?
Gender and sexuality.
Yeah, no, you can go right into what we're doing.
So we're gonna do
The last
the same
topic
thing we go to the
to-
speaker. And then just put them here on the board. Just something continue that you want. So you don't just be like, you have a line, and you're supposed to have a line, starting at the top.
I have looked at it, but just like I've had many groups. I never had a mentor. Yeah, I need a mentor. I'm serious. I need a mentor.
You need a mentor. All I've ever had in my life were mentors. You may be coming in from like a coach education.
That would be awesome.
I don't know.
I was gonna tell you I like the guayabera. Guayabera?
Yeah, thank you.
Sometimes I can't distinguish a guayabera from a varón. You know, varón from the Filipino version.
Oh, okay.
Of a guayabera, they look really similar, and sometimes depending on how styled they are, you really can't tell which is which. But it's the same idea of a formal shirt. I love it.
Right, yeah.
Beautiful. Yes. Love to have you.
Well, gender and sexuality. So it is a lot of women's studies. I mean, I don't know. It just, I love.
Are you already in a graduate program, or is it undergrad? Yeah, okay. So it's a great transition, because you have a lot of students who come from that undergrad major into the master's. So you see at least some folks that are familiar to you from the department. Yeshe, Juanito, now Juanito's boyfriend.
Oh, right. I met him, did I met him last Sunday? I can't say it's
Any PH, the first part, he had to spell it for me. But yeah, he's thinking about coming in. Two people that work with, when he's still like people, and like that events, and then he's going to follow.
I got a bot, that's why I met her.
Oh, yeah, I met, so I don't know, I'm just thinking about it, but
I just threw it out of my
America works in, IGS, right? She's faculty in IGS.
Right.
She's just comes from the program. There's a lot of cross-pollination between IGS and CIVA. Disciplinarily, there's sort of artificial separations anyway, and since IGS doesn't yet have a grad program, and we have only a grad program, it seems to work really well. So then the undergrads become our masters, and then our doc students become part-time students.
They're getting really technical.
They're really amazing.
Do you want to start on the picture? And I'm like, should I be doing my
So
you all can start on this side if you like. You can take this third row. Well, she's got.
Oh,
I haven't been. Yeah, here. We divided our labor. And
I mean, we are in a good job. Thank you. There are a lot of people who don't want to teach. So people that want to do work or want to work on campus, like university office,
if you did it that way, however you want it. All of our knowledge is
only that we sort of situate our understanding of educational inequity in terms of how we're preparing people to teach in schools, and then what happens to students, especially for students of color in schools, and how that then filters out what would be happening inside.
Yeah.
So we sort of situate us on we're taking responsibility for the lack of good job that we're doing, which is why some of us now bachelor's in English. But from my lens,
You all ready, Yesenia? Can I help?
yes, getting ready to put your continuum.
No, that's what I'm just like.
So suffice it to say, if you want to do something else, like activism or community-based organizing, or you want to do a school job at not teaching, or you want to, like in my grad program, the situation teaching and learning too. One of my classmates, she was a carpenter, and she now runs a sustainable farm for kids, school kids, who come to the farm and learn about sustainable whole food and sustainable farming techniques, and that's what she used her PhD for. So she combined, her understanding of education and pedagogy with her love of carpentry and put them together. It's pretty cool.
we can talk about this more later, definitely. I didn't think about it so broadly. You gotta send in my bed. I'm just.
You're fine. I threw something at you.
I love to take jobs.
I do too.
See how they're going like this?
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to do another gallery walk? Oh, they already have.
Yeah. All right, everyone. So in the interest of time, we're gonna, if you hear the sound of my voice, snap once. Hear the sound of my voice, snap 2 times. All right, everyone. So let's just take a moment to just observe our collective continuum of from mentorship to mentorship and the ways in which each group decided to kind of engage their funds of knowledge in this process. So ideally, if we had more time, we would also invite you to do another gallery walk, right? But we want to be able to get to that part of the debrief in the discussion. So as you're thinking, what are some things that stand out right now? The pink tube, okay. And Timothy, what do you think that the pink tube represents potentially, or what is the message here?
Circular nature, time, black circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This idea that maybe there's this fluid movement, right? That this continuum is maybe
right? It's a circle instead of like linear, right? That there's this ongoing dynamic. Maybe the group can share some more ideas.
Yeah, we honestly felt that it wasn't a linear continuum, that it's, all of these are, we needed multiple dimensions to really express the relationship between all of these things and the fluid nature, in as much as if, the dominant ideology of the practice changes, then at that point everything kind of gets reorganized. So as the process of mentorship, whatever word we want to use for this behavior that we are describing, as common practice shifts, then you would have to realign everything. So we kind of figured that we needed multiple dimensions to do this, and well, with paper and tape, that was the best we could do to represent it.
And it would have been like a Mobius strip.
Yes,
like
we did
that.
want to
But
Mobius
we
it,
just we
but
didn't have that capability.
At the time. Let's give some snaps for just like the sense of creativity in this room. Anything else that stands out to folks as you look at the board and the colors?
Did anyone say it's already fairly equal along the board? Stepped out.
Yeah.
So-
No one had said that yet. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay,
Yeah,
great.
thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't seem too congested in one category.
Mm-hmm.
Though it might be an artifact of just people trying to get like entropy in the board space.
It could be possible. Maybe it's where I put the tapes and I kind of put the predisposed locations for everyone. Although I did appreciate the groups that moved the tapes around for me. Any other responses or reactions to this? Even just the exercise.
I found it interesting that people stuck in color bands rather than sort of moving things. So there is this, two dimensions on the board. So you could have like putting your own y-axis, but everyone for the most part just continues to represent the linear nature rather than intermixing.
Yeah. And then even down here, right, there's something still happening here. And this group I noticed had positioned it more like in kind of up and down. It was a little vertical as well as horizontal. So there was like clusters. And I think that kind of happened here too, which is interesting.
And then this group, Sonia, I noticed that you intentionally had your continuum start from each end and work towards the middle in terms of how you positioned the pieces. And so I love how you did it here, so that these face this way and these face this way, as if to say, it's kind of coming to, at least I envision kind of a V. Do you want to say more about that, or Frankie?
Well, it's kind of like we didn't really think about it. It just kind of started happening as we put it down. And I just think it's really, the spectrum, I don't see anything as binary anymore. So I don't see anything as good and bad. It's just this different spectrum and they all join in the middle. Not necessarily all being the same. It's just, the more you spread out, the different it'll be, the closer you get, the more similarities. But yeah, that's why we gotta be like, there's no, it all gets similar, or they share similar properties. So not necessarily one being evil or bad. So that's what I guess we just don't think in a binary way.
How we contextualize the use of the tools, right? Or the way that we invoke the relationship might have to do with the context, the nature of the people engaged in the relationship and the context in which they're engaging.
So we'll also maybe capture this in images and send it to everyone so we can talk about this. One of the other things that we wanted to discuss a little bit before we kind of debrief everything that we've talked about and explored today, based on this exercise, what would be your understanding of the word femtorship? And is that, we'll just start there. What would be your understanding of the word femtorship?
I would love to.
I was going to say it's a traditional or a critical approach to the traditional mentorship. I mean, anytime you have feminism, you're going to have a critical lens. And so, and I don't mean criticizing, right? So
That's
I'm
right.
saying it's bad or good, but I'm saying that you're going to look at it
From an analytical, right? Or evaluate, right? We're going to.
absolutely. And you're going to evaluate what things are going to work for different people, because traditional works for traditional privileged, on the top of most rungs of things, right? The people who have the most things set up for them. But when we're thinking about marginalized folks, we need to be critical of the way that we're mentoring. We need to think about ways that we can meet them where they're at, rather than them having to meet for mentorship about.
is a big part of our femtorship relationship. The critical.
You know, even some of the research on how we traditionally teach, right? How we traditionally teach is this idea of sort of what we're doing right now, though we're a little bit more interactive, but the idea of didactic delivery of information. Even though the research on that was done on upper middle class, or at least middle class, white, male, heterosexual, native English speaking, right, et cetera, white male students, what we know is that it really is only a preferred learning style for about 4%. And yet we use that as the point of reference for how we teach everybody. And so, yes, absolutely, what is dominant serves the interests of the dominant, but maybe it only serves those interests in a particular way. And maybe actually, you know, femtorship would work even for those folks more often, right, than not, if we're thinking about working, and what we mean by working, right, more complexly, using your lens, using a critical lens. What does it mean for is something to work, right? What's the end goal? What's the outcome that we're seeking? Which I think is an interesting question.
I think, at least my interpretation is kind of beyond the sensitivity for cultural, sex, gender, race differences. So more, I think when I do think of mentorship, what it immediately sparks to me is very defined roles, some authority, someone who's a neophyte trying to learn all these things. I think mentorship is a good reminder that you really see yourself as a mentor to a mentee on equal planes, a lot more so. And that's not something I really thought about with mentorship. When I think of mentorship, it's very defined roles, no list of leash, one person learns from the other one. And maybe like some pedagogical tendencies, but you don't really think of equality as much.
Right. And that kind of gets to the potential assumption of thinking that the person that's being mentored, the mentee, has no valuable funds of knowledge or life experiences that could also influence, right, the person who's doing the mentoring. So absolutely.
Going along with that, it's easy to forget that you do have, as a mentee, you do have knowledge, and there's something that can be gained from that knowledge by your mentor. We always see it as a one-way, and just like education and thinking kind of thing. I have the knowledge or the resources, I'm giving it to you, but it goes both ways, and there's something that to be gotten, even if it's intrinsic, right? Even if it doesn't help your career, maybe materially, just having that kind of relationship can be useful for all parties.
Absolutely. Good. Yeah.
From everything that's been described and everything reading about mentorship, to me, it just seems like self-aware and reflective mentorship. Maybe I've been extremely lucky that all of my mentors, and I've had many, have been very self-reflective and very aware and open. So to me, it just sounds like, well, this is what we should be doing, rather than like a dichotomy. It just seems like a really excellent form of that behavior.
Yeah, it sounds like you've had transformative experiences with the people you've related to, and that's absolutely what we hope all of you will be able to engage in relating to others, right? And how will this journey also help you grow professionally and personally? Right? Any other thoughts or reflections on this side? Responses? Yep, great.
Basically what I'm just really, really happy to hear, like you said, I mentioned there's so many levels to people that most people, I don't say most people, but there is a lot of people that still think very like, and people are like, oh, I don't want to assume, but sometimes, getting to know these people on those levels, like we said, you mentioned race content, like, yeah, you say person, cis, trans, non-binary, queer, straight, first language was not English, where they're from, all these things that play a major part, and getting to know people on that level makes the world of a difference, and so I'm really glad to hear that. And when I do think of mentorship, I do think of more openness, more activity, but just more acknowledgement and stuff like that. So I'm just, yeah.
Thank you. Timothy, did I see your hand or? Oh, I was making sure that I didn't overlook. Okay.
Sure. So now we just want to come to a close because our time is near, and we want to honor your time and the time of the videographers. And so what we'd like for folks to take away is this idea of femtorship as we've constructed it, right? Co-constructed it today as something that we get something from and that we give something to. So we just wanted you to take just a minute one more reflective minute or two to think about, if you imagine a femtorship relationship in which you are engaged, what do you need from it, and what are you willing to give to it? And we really, the sidebar conversation over here with Yesenia, when we did the first series of questions, was she said she could write 7 pages, and I said, well, this is your opportunity to learn to summarize. And I was reminded of an undergraduate professor of mine that used to beat us up with this issue of summarization, right? And it served me well. So what we're asking you to do is to think maybe in terms of words that might represent 1 or 2 words, or a short phrase that might represent what you're willing to give and what you need from the femtorship relationship. Okay, when you're ready, just sort of give us an eye sign. You don't have to necessarily stand up and, oh, I guess we are going to stand up and post it. Okay, that's fine.
Come around with it.
Okay, that's good. We'll do it. We'll do it as a walk around. We'll do the gallery walk this time. Okay. Like a new version of the Macarena. We'll just be in touch, right? She can help you get my contact information. Okay.
I want to say objectivity is what I mean, but I don't think that's the word. I don't think it's like wokeness. It's somewhere between, I like a mixture.
I'm sure that those are words.
Hey, I'm down with that. Yeah, I feel like, because my coffee is too hot. I really needed the love. It's really weird crap. I narrowed it down to a word. 1 to 2 words.
I like the purple. I love it.
It's my favorite color.
I do this.
I put it in color.
I just did this yesterday, so full on purple accessories. Anymore? All right. So I'll take a slow walk if you want to.
So we decided instead of having you do a gallery walk, we're going to do the facilitator walk so that you can just see what everybody said.
I feel like there should be a dance. Like, all right, everyone, do the facilitator walk. Does it make it more festive to read?
Yeah, it does make it a little bit more festive to read.
Make my eyes dance before I start.
There you go.
I did learn how to protest not to move my sign around so that nobody can read it. So that's it. Because I tend to go like this. Look at my sign.
You should post this on the website with random first name and last initial, kind of like does with Jack Butler.
That's so fun. I hate mine around my neck.
Like 2 minutes into the protest.
No, hold this.
Well, I like that.
Like
I
when
like that
somebody
next one.
photographed him, like,
That's a good one.
then I hold it up.
That makes sense.
It's really windy. So you just feel like you want to hold it if you hold it up in the air for too long.
So the idea between what you're willing to give and what you need is to really think about all of our relationship building in the context of teaching and learning, but in this particular case, in terms of femtorship, is this idea that it takes place inside a community. And in the context of community, we have both the complex relationship between the individual and the group needs. And in a relationship, a femtoring relationship, even a mentoring relationship, there are two individuals and they come together and they form a group. And so there is this negotiation of individual and group concerns. And that is something that we really want people to take away, is this idea that that's the negotiation, is how do we build a community inside the relationship that takes into account the individuals and the unit, right? Whatever that unit is. And the point Frankie made is that part of that unit is also not just expecting the two people that are engaged in the relationship to be enough, but to construct the femtoring relationship to take advantage of the broader community in which the context in which the relationship is taking hold, right? So research, resources, and referral, and broadening the circle. Because, you know, at the risk of sounding a little cheesy, you know, it really does take the village, right? It really does take the village, like Malika said earlier. Anything you want to say in closing?
Yeah, I think I'm really excited to learn about your journeys, continued journeys, right? Because we are confident that you have already been doing a lot of this. And from what we read, some of you have had some really amazing experiences with mentorship, and looking forward to hearing how femtorship kind of comes into that way of relating in this new process, right? And I think one thing that maybe we could have asked, and it would be nice maybe to engage in a continued dialogue afterwards, but maybe what expectations did you all have for today's workshop, right? And so based on the title, I believe it was diversity and embracing diversity and equity in a femtoring mentoring relationship. And so maybe if we just have any thoughts about maybe what your expectation was of the workshop and what you're taking away. So it can be a word, it can be a phrase, it could just be something, but we'd love to hear from everyone. So if someone wants to get us started, we'll do it kind of in a whip it fashion. So that means we'll use very short chunks of information sharing time, and then we'll just quickly whip it around the room. Anyone excited to get us started? All right, thank you.
I feel like we just scratched the surface. I just want more. Like I want to dive deeper into it, and I thought maybe we would cover more, but I know we only have an hour. So I love the activities, but I want more.
And is there something specifically more that you need, that you feel like?
Readings about how to do
Perfect.
practice,
Yes.
Because I study intersectionality and feminist criminology, so this is naturally part of my identity as a scholar already. So I just really.
We will absolutely send the team articles and research. Yes. So which direction are we going?
Which direction do you want to whip?
Please whip it this way. Great feedback. So that next time they book us for more time, right? Yes.
I was expecting PowerPoint slides and kind of a lecture format, and this was a lot more interesting, a lot more engaging, and certainly more educational to see everybody's perspective.
Awesome. Yeah. Amy, you want to say something?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I was expecting a slideshow or like a discussion, but I mean it is a discussion, but it's more of exchange ideas, but like I love that. I also want to learn more.
Yeah. Thank you. Yesenia?
Well, I've learned and worked with y'all for a while, so I kind of know what to expect. But I was like,
I also was expecting the slideshow, and I've gone to a couple of these grad workshops, and I love that it was interactive, but I feel like I've learned in a totally different way. And I also would like to have more readings and learn how to do these activities with students and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
If there was if there was kind of like a organization, or at least like a grad student mentoring group that would want to meet every so often, it seems like that would be a valuable thing to change.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. We're all for it.
I thought it was really cool how you guys practice what you preach. So not only were you coming in here telling us about the mentor, but when you were giving us the information, you were allowing us to participate in defining what it meant. And so how much more mentor could you be than practicing what you preach? So I thought that was really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was the best mentorship workshop I've been to this semester, hands down. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the interactive nature. Echo everybody else. I want more. Give me books. Videos,
We
and
will.
Give me more workshops that last even longer and you don't normally do that.
Thank you.
I was hoping for novelty compared to the other workshops. And I think it's very difficult when you put on a workshop to know exactly where one comes from. You don't want to have to like reach out to the previous speakers doing mentorships that say, hey, what have you done already? Because I don't want to have to double dip and other stuff. So yeah, I appreciate the interaction. It's always usually something new. Out of curiosity, where's this snap? Is this
Yeah.
It's kind of popular now.
Yeah.
So, like, where does that come from?
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about the different origins. Like right now, it's usually used in like poetry slams or in a way of saying like what you said resonates with me. So I'm sending like this snap of encouragement, the snap of connectedness to celebrate. I think sometimes it's maybe loud or there's a different kind of experience. Imagine being in a room full of people and everyone is snapping like at something that you're saying, like you're giving a speak, you're giving a talk. And it's a way of the crowd interacting with you in a way that doesn't maybe disrupt the speaker, as the same way a clap might, right? It doesn't disrupt it. Cool.
What's like
Yeah.
the boo?
Silence, maybe? Just like appreciation, withholding. No, not at all. We just want to hear from our two other friends. Make sure we get everyone. God. Yep.
I think everything I've been saying is like what's once. What I would like to add in that is like my first time hearing feminist sometime called shit. It was my first time hearing that. So the first time I hear that one, then I was saying like mentorship by itself is disadvantage. My knowledge is music and then give that feminist or there. Under this context, I was saying like why do we need another term here for mentorship and finally I got some concepts and yeah. So to be indulged seriously into that entity, then we need to specifically think of that mentorship rather than just generalize mentorship. So I finally got that. I was confused with the term and then finally I got the concept and then that's what I got.
Excellent.
Thank you. Similarly to everyone else, I enjoyed the part workshops are very powerful. And this looks interesting. I like it. I also would like some more things to see like articles.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for sharing. And I think part of the pedagogical tools that we used, right, and everything that we modeled is to emphasize this idea of equity, right? How do we have equitable spaces where everyone can contribute their funds of knowledge, right? Where whatever barriers to learning, to being able to express ourselves, we dismantle those even in this session, and we could have conversations that would last probably all afternoon around unpacking the elements of diversity and equity that we intentionally embedded within our experience this morning, right? Because then we can just actually have that conversation. What does it mean and how does this transfer to like our relating, and how can we support diverse or different journeys and experiences and value all of those at the same time?
Just want to thank my co-facilitator because it's always a pleasure and I always learn.
And I'm not sure we actually told him what our relationship is. So
We
maybe,
didn't.
No.
What is our relationship?
It's a fluid one.
There's the formal relationship and the informal one, right? So formally?
Yeah. So formally, I'm going to see if I can do this in 30 seconds or under. This is what I put my commercial voice on. We met in 2008 at a conference. I was surprised and overwhelmed by everything that she said and spoke about. I said, this woman is important. Circled her name. 10 years later, not even 10 years later, maybe 8 years later, meet her at a conference. I know people who have her as an advisor and they say, well, you know, I'm about to graduate the program. We need someone else who's going to kind of take this little spot. Here's my advisor, Dr. Christine Clark. And I said, hello. And she just welcomed me in. A year later, I was moving across the country from DC to UNLV to be a student in the doctoral program that Dr. Clark is in charge of, the Cultural Studies, Multicultural Education, and International Education program, CME program. and teaching and learning.
And now she's making my life so much easier, right? Like so much easier because it's just, she gets why this work is important, which is not always the case in academia. And so it can be alienating and isolating. And for 8 years, I was a faculty of one, and now I finally have a second faculty member, Dr. Norma Marun. And the two of us together, we now coordinate a program that, though there's only two of us, we have 30% of the doctoral students in the entire department, more than all of the other students in the programs within the other sub areas combined, right? And so the only way that we can make it work is by drawing on the cultural wealth and the funds of knowledge of the students that come into the program, who we see as our colleagues and who are reciprocally informing our work and really pushing us to try to just up our game constantly, right? To think in new and different ways, to push the bounds of our knowledge, to make sure that we are current in our research, even though we're tenured, in my case, a full professor. And I often get the message from my students that you still actually publish, you still, you're still actively engaged in research activity. And so that's because my students demand it, because they want to have those experiences. And so they really do force us to up our games. But we're only students and faculty in one context. Change the context and the nature of our relationship changes, and that's where the reciprocity comes in. And so Malika is really helping me to create a transformative environment within our department and then also in our community. So that's our lived reality, that's our lived experience. Thank you all very much. We appreciate it. We will email you resources.
Yes,
and
lots
we'll
of
continue the
reading,
conversation.
pedagogical tools, and continue it via, and hopefully forge a group that's really interested in continuing this work.
I almost wish I was not,